You want to know what I keep thinking about is that we have elections in November.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do. We do. That's going to come
Yeah.
really fast. That's in what, like 8 months? Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think for the staff here at ARRM, or I'm sure at the Capitol, I'm sure in many member organizations, we are just looking to get through the next few months intact and, with the best ideas being pushed forward.
That's a very diplomatic answer, but I have a feeling you're not very diplomatic about it. Okay. Welcome back to Waiver Watch.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Megan.
And this is episode 5.
This is episode 5, and we're at a different location today. We're in my office, main area in our conference room, getting ready for the Women's Summit, which is tomorrow. So we are not a priority compared to Women's Summit.
No, definitely not. And another odd caveat for today's recording is that it's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. We've been filming on Mondays pretty consistently.
And why are we filming on Tuesday?
Because the podcast gods did not favor us yesterday.
No, they didn't. Like we said last week, the horrors persist, so do we. So we're going to continue as if nothing happened. And actually, I think this is a good thing because we had our hearing today. Instead of previewing the hearing yesterday, we can actually recap it today. And we'll get to that. But why don't we start with some Day at the Capitol?
Yeah, let's talk about Day at the Capitol.
Let's talk about it. So that's fast approaching.
Couple weeks.
March 24th, 10 a.m. in the Capitol Rotunda is Day at the Capitol. And I know we repeat this a lot, but it bears repeating. There's a lot of security at the Capitol this year, and that's a good thing. I was subject to that security today going into the hearing, and I was stuck behind approximately 2,000 high schoolers who were there for something. And I feel like I got a little taste of what it's going to be like on Day at the Capitol with large crowds of people coming in all at once. They have been pretty efficient in moving people through. It's not like airport security that takes a long time, but it does get congested, and it does mean people will want to arrive early. So whatever your commuting plan is for Day at the Capitol, definitely add 15 to 20 minutes on top of that for parking, for walking up to the Capitol itself, to the security check-in. We're going to start the rally at 10 a.m. It goes until 11. You don't have to come at the very beginning. You can come in whenever if you get delayed for some reason. But just remember, there's going to be security. It's going to be a pain in the neck compared to what a lot of people are used to, but it's a good thing to have that there this year.
It's the people's house, but we need to keep people safe.
Exactly. Other than that, the setup should be pretty much the same as last year. So the state office building is still closed, which means any meeting with your member of the House that isn't a joint meeting with your senator. And we try to schedule meetings together as much as we can. So having legislators from the same districts meet in one location, as much as we can do that, we try to do that if you schedule the meeting with us. A lot of times that just can't happen because schedules get wonky. Legislators are busy at different times in the day. Your House meetings will often be in the Centennial Office building, which is not ideal, but it is what we have to work with this year while the actual House office building is being built. It's under construction. So we have one more year of dealing with this less than ideal Centennial Office building where a lot of meetings will be held in the cafeteria. And if you attended last year and had a meeting, you might be familiar with that. It's not an ideal meeting place. It can get a little noisy. It can be tough to find folks sometimes, but we will have a staff there on hand to help. Other than that, the Senate building is the same. Again, it'll have security at the main door, but no changes there. If you have a meeting with a senator, it should almost always be at the Senate building unless we're pulling them from a different committee because of time constraints.
Can you talk a little bit about what people can expect in terms of accessibility in those buildings? Because I know we've had questions in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And I hate to say that the Capitol itself, the main Capitol building, it's not the most handicap accessible. There's very much limited elevator capacity. I think there's only 2 accessible elevators on Day at the Capitol for our use, and those do get congested. So keep that in mind. The Minnesota Senate building is a different story. It is very handicap accessible. It's a newer building and built with these things in mind. So typically there isn't a lot of issue getting around that one. There are tunnels connecting the Senate building and the Capitol building. There will be security going between those as well, but it is a good handicap option going from the Capitol to the Senate building or vice versa. There is a tunnel system that goes to the Centennial building. I do suggest going above ground, just walking the sidewalk to the Centennial building. And then the Centennial building is another one that's pretty old. I won't say it's the most handicap accessible, but it's not horrible either. Some of the entrances are a little tight. A few of the doors are not the most accessible to get through. But once you're inside the building itself, there's plenty of elevator space. There's plenty of space to operate wheelchairs or anything like that. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's not all great, but it's not all horrible.
What about seating? What seating is available on day at the Capitol?
In the rotunda itself, there is a limited amount of chairs you are allowed to have in there. And we do the maximum as much as we can at these things, but there's limited seating. So we don't have any reserved seats this year. We don't have any chairs that are designated for specific folks. It's first come, first serve. We highly suggest people leave those chairs open for folks who need them, but it is going to be a lot of standing too. There are benches in the hallways outside of the rotunda itself. So if you get tired, need to get off your feet, you can certainly go do that. And then of course, ARRM will have a room set up between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. over in the Christ on Capitol Hill Church. We're reserving the main sanctuary room in that church for people to get off their feet, rest a little bit. You'll be able to do that between noon and 3 p.m. We do have meetings in that church beforehand, but we'll open our doors for general rest time and break time starting at noon. That church is located right across the street from the Senate. We'll have signs and more information on how to find it, but it should be pretty easy to get into and pretty available for folks.
And I think for the first time ever, we've had such a large group want to meet with legislators that we had to find an external space to house them, which has logistical complications, but it's pretty exciting, honestly.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
And remember to stop by the merch stand. We do have fanny packs. So
we do.
that's exciting this year. And don't let the logistics bog you down. It sounds like a lot when we're explaining it all, but it is a fun day, as we've said before. And we'll have a speaker lineup of legislators ready to go, and it'll be another great day at the Capitol.
I have a few other events.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah, Women's Summit is tomorrow, Wednesday the 4th. Super, super excited about it. Stay tuned to our socials and everything like that. I'm going to be running around all day, I'm sure, with my phone. It is National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in March. It's also International Women's Month. But for Developmental Disability Awareness Month, the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities sets a theme every year. And this year's theme is We're Here, Then, Now, and Always. So ARRM is highlighting that on our socials right now, but definitely check them out and learn how to get involved with that. What else do we have coming up on the 18th? The 18th is going to be a busy day because we have a Q&A with DHS. That's a member benefit. We get a group of panelists from the Department of Human Services to get on a call and answer member questions. You can submit questions ahead of time to questions@arrm.org or just log on to the call and ask your questions there. So that's 11 a.m. on the 18th. And then that afternoon, also on the 18th, we have Proven Practices for Confronting DSP Workforce Issues. So that's a member-only webinar. Should be exciting. And then I believe you also are possibly going to do a Day at the Capitol webinar that day.
Correct. The webinar will go over all the logistics, how to get around, how to navigate our new app, and all the other fun stuff that goes with attending Day at the Capitol, so that you go in feeling prepared, feeling confident, and that the whole day can go a little more smoothly.
And then we have more events coming up in April. But I want to jump ahead to July because our Forward Annual Conference registration is officially open.
Oh my gosh.
As if we didn't have enough going on. Yeah, so you can register right now if you want to for the Forward Annual Conference, and early bird pricing goes through the end of this month. So if you want to take advantage of that early bird, get on in the next
Where is
couple
that going to
weeks.
be this year?
Mystic Lake. We're back at Mystic. Everyone's really excited about it. We love being there. It's a great venue. And definitely a shorter commute for those of us in the Twin Cities, but hopefully it's a great little spot for folks out of town to come learn and network and just, get away from kind of the daily grind.
Love it. So that's always a highlight of the year, at least for me. And I know a lot of others have expressed how much they like it too. So hope to see you there. A lot of fun stuff coming down the pike.
Yep.
It's a busy legislative week. Every week will be a busy legislative week through the month of March, through the month of April. especially as we near first and second deadlines. Again, this is a very short legislative session. We started February 16th, although it feels like it was 7 years ago. And there's a lot to talk about with human services because it really is the center of the universe, it feels like, when we're talking about this legislative session. And I'm glad we're recording this today because ARRM testified today. Earlier this morning, I actually just got back from the Capitol a couple hours ago. Our very own Sarah Grafstrom, as well as a few parents and members, testified on behalf of our IHS-T, our ICE-T bill, which is House File 3375, which aims to create some flexibility around the usage of IHS with training services, moving things to a monthly cap instead of a daily limit, removing the consecutive hour limits, a few other technical pieces that make it a little more workable for providers. I would say it was the only moment of joy in that whole committee today in what was a very tense environment. The issue of fraud and now the Medicaid withholds from the federal government in the amount of $259 million really sapped a lot of the discussion from both sides of the aisle, quite frankly. There's discussion around, how can Minnesota's Department of Human Services submit a plan that is approved by CMS and Dr. Oz on how to make sure that more dollars aren't withheld in the future. Because right now there is a federal plan to continue to withhold more money. The amount we've seen now, which is again $259 million, is from the end of last quarter in December up until now. And it's possible that up to $2 billion over the next couple of years could be withheld as well. There's an element of kind of a ticking clock to everything. Coming up with a plan to fight fraud, which is a good thing. Both sides of the aisle were in firm agreements that fraud needs to be rooted out, but that it needs to be rooted out with a scalpel and not a blunt instrument, as a few of the representatives mentioned today. However, because of this ticking time bomb in the background with federal Medicaid withholds, there's such an urgency to move fast on creating some bipartisan methods to go forward and create fraud prevention measures that go through DHS and the state legislature that are satisfactory to CMS, that are satisfactory to providers and the folks at DHS and to all of our legislators. It's going to be a lot of work. And it's going to be pretty much daily updates on how we're going to get there. And there is a lack of insights on what CMS is looking for in terms of the goalposts that we have to get across. And I think that is really one of the most concerning things right now, is that to avoid these future withholds, we don't necessarily know what we have to achieve. So that's what we're up against. Again, it's still early in the legislative session, so hopefully we will know more as we progress, but it is at this place of uncertainty. And in today's House Human Services Committee, you could certainly feel that uncertainty and that tension in the air. It wasn't so much legislators going at each other's throats as it was legislators being mad about the situation we all find ourselves in. One thing I will say positive about the hearing is that there was a lot of emphasis placed on making sure people get their services, are protected, are kept healthy and in a place where they feel safe and comfortable and living where they want to live. So it's good that the focus is where it needs to be, but there remains to be a lot of work. So not the happiest of days in the Human Services Committee, but it is a well-focused fight, and I think something that's we can create a lot of bipartisan support on. And ARRM will continue to do what it can to help spur that bipartisan support around solutions that work for providers, and that's also work within the constraints of DHS and CMS for that matter.
So that's it.
That's a lot. That's all. One more thing I'll say is that ARRM met with a bill author around a separate bill. It's called House File 3423. It is for MA enrollments requirements. So for a provider to enroll in MA, there's a list of requirements they have to meet. The one that was brought to our attention, the criteria that I think most people pointed out as being something we have to pay attention to, is that providers are going to be required to have either $100,000 in the bank or 10% of the provider's payments from Medicaid. Whichever is greater. This could also be a line of credits in that amount. But that is something that is not always possible. In an industry that operates on very slim margins, is often a nonprofit, employs a lot of folks who are already underpaid. And it's just not something that is sustainable, especially for smaller providers. So we've given that feedback to the bill author and we'll continue to track this one. But we do know that's on folks' mind and we will continue to do what we can to make that workable for providers of all sizes.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is an interesting solution to the problem that providers found themselves in early this year. I mean, we heard from providers of, yeah, I had to go to my bank and ask for a line of credit, or what person their bank allowed them, or one organization, I should say, their bank allowed them to go tens of thousands of dollars in the red, like overdraw their account so they could make payroll. So that sort of cash flow issue is real, but ARRM feels, I think, there are better solutions to that problem than putting the burden on providers to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the genesis of this bill is a fraud prevention measure, and it is making sure folks can survive prepayment reviews that could go on for a couple of weeks. But the negotiations with this bill have just started. We'll see where it goes and what's we can come to the table with ultimately. But we've heard from you, and we want to make sure that we're respecting your thoughts and making sure those get to the proper legislators. Things are developing at such a pace that I understand we do these weekly. By the time this podcast gets out, sometimes it feels like 100 new things have happened, but we'll continue to do what we can to get that information out as it relates to our members and what might impact their work.
For sure. Is there anything else on the horizon this week that you're watching for?
Yeah, so in the Senate, there's been a lot of talk about the attendance of DHS staff, or I guess the lack thereof, at those Senate hearings. Something that really upset some of the members last time, at least during that session. And of course, they talk after and so on. So I don't want to say anything out of line, but we'll keep an eye on how those Senate's hearings progress and see if there's anything in there that either raises the attention of Sarah and Ken and myself. But it's going to be interesting to see how those relationship dynamics work out and how they impact the session as a whole, because again, it's going to be very short.
It is. Yeah. And there was not a ton of communication between the department and other parties during the break, like when session was not ongoing. So
Yeah.
it feels important that it should be happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a unique time in Minnesota, and I think we all kind of realize where we are now, and there's a lot of good ideas on how to get to a better place. I think it's working out those relationship pieces. It's putting the best ideas forward and trying to remove the political gamification of it all. And I think we can get there. So
Yeah.
stay tuned. It'll be a quick session, and I'm excited to update you as much as we can along the way.
Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we should be back next week at our usual time, barring our technology wants to work with us. But thank you again, and we'll see you next week in what will feel like 1,000 years from now.
Indeed.
All right.
And thanks for tuning in to the Waiver Watch podcast produced by ARRM. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, as well as our other social media. Be sure to tune in next week, and we will see you soon.